Chapter 31 Elder Meng comes to the rescue. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You. Stop it. That's right, Long Outyen, stop joking. Long Outyen, we admit that you are indeed very strong, but that's just your strength. That's right, the level of your disciples is a mess. Letting them follow you, isn't it a complete waste of good seedlings? I think I should teach, I am the most qualified. At this time, an elder with a mustache said slowly. Bullshit, you are even worse. The disciples you taught are extremely dull, just like fools. Do you want to turn Bai Fei into a fool? You are just talking nonsense. This is the fact. These inner door elders quarreled again. This made Bai Fei feel helpless. He originally wanted to use this topic to get away with it, but he didn't expect that these inner door elders would quarrel over him again, forcing him to stay here. At this time, the deputy leader of the inner sect slowly shouted, "Okay, everyone. Let's not argue here, it's useless. Why don't we listen to what Bai Fei thinks in his heart?" Hearing the words of the deputy leader of the inner sect, everyone's eyes turned to Bai Fei. At that moment, Bai Fei felt a huge pressure, as if he was carrying a mountain, which made his whole mood become very bad. This is really a difficult question for Bai Fei to decide. He knew very well that once he chose one of the elders, although the other elders might appear calm on the surface, they might secretly make things difficult for him. After all, he was the second person who successfully passed the 9 levels in hundreds of years. So, no matter who he worshipped, it was definitely not a good choice. What should he do? Bai Fei regretted passing the 9 levels. In this situation, he could only choose with a stiff upper lip, so, Bai Fei looked around at everyone present. Finally, his eyes fell on a figure. At that moment, Bai Fei's eyes suddenly became bright. Then, Bai Fei bowed to the many elders and the masters of the inner and outer sects and said, "Elders, deputy masters, in fact, I have already made an agreement with an elder. If I succeed, I will worship him as my master," and he also agreed happily. Hearing Bai Fei's words, these strong men who wanted to accept Bai Fei as their disciple were very surprised. Lin Tingtao was also shocked and thought secretly, "Who is faster than me?" At that moment, Lin Tingtao looked at Bai Fei and asked, "Bai Fei, which elder is the one you mentioned? I wonder if you can let him come out to meet us. After all, no matter what, these are the best of the blood sword sect. If he doesn't have enough ability, wouldn't it be a waste of talent for you to become his disciple?" Lin Tingtao's words attracted the approval of countless people. They are all strong men of the blood sword sect. Who else can be stronger than them and more qualified to teach Bai Fei? Bai Fei smiled slightly when he heard this and said, "This elder is also here." Lin Tingtao was a little surprised. "Oh. Who is it? Please identify him." Lin Tingtao's purpose was very simple, that is, to let Bai Fei identify the elder and let everyone judge him. If he really has that ability, it's fine. If he can't convince everyone, then he has a chance. Lin Tingtao's words also attracted the consent of all the elders and deputy leaders of the inner sect. "That's right. You tell me that person. Let's see if he is qualified to accept you as a disciple." "I don't believe it. Is there anyone more qualified to teach you than me?" Hearing the words of everyone, Bai Fei just nodded lightly, then turned around with a calm face and walked out towards a figure. Of course, although Bai Fei walked out very slowly, what about the fact? He was very nervous, because he didn't know what the other party was thinking. However, in this situation, only he could solve it. Everyone's eyes followed Bai Fei's figure. When they saw Bai Fei walk in front of a person, they all showed disbelief on their faces, some of them even cursed. "Fuck. Damn it." Lin Tingtao's face also showed astonishment, which made his eyebrows frown, and he thought secretly, "How could it be him?" Yes, everyone present saw Bai Fei walk towards a person. This person was the gatekeeper elder of the 9-story Linglong Tower, Elder Meng. Bai Fei appeared in front of Elder Meng, bowed slightly, clasped his hands, and said in a deep voice, "Elder Meng, I'm here to fulfill my promise." After saying this, Bai Fei's whole mood became nervous. He didn't know whether Elder Meng would cooperate with him to perform this scene, but he had no choice but to do so. The reason why Bai Fei chose Elder Meng was because he knew very well that not everyone could become the gatekeeper elder of the 9-story Linglong Tower. And Bai Fei could sense that although the auras of these inner sect elders were indeed very strong, compared to Elder Meng, his aura was longer and deeper, so Bai Fei guessed that Elder Meng must have some extraordinary identity. More importantly, Elder Meng also helped him when he just broke through the level, so he should not stand by and watch him die. This is why Bai Fei wanted to find Elder Meng to help him out. Elder Meng, who had originally closed his eyes, slowly opened his eyes at this moment, and a hint of playfulness appeared in his turbid eyes. To be honest, Elder Meng was really a little surprised. He had never expected that Bai Fei would use him as a shield. Did he see through his true identity? No, Elder Meng didn't think he had the brains to do that. However, such a good seedling really couldn't be allowed to be ruined by those guys. Elder Meng didn't intend to intervene at first, although he felt a little pity, but after all, his identity was there. But now, this little guy actually came to me on his own initiative, so I can't blame myself. At that moment, Elder Meng slowly opened his lips and spoke. Yes, I did make an agreement with this little guy. If he can pass the 9 levels, I will accept him as my disciple. Chapter 32, Apprenticeship and Rewards. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hearing Elder Meng's words, Bai Fei finally breathed a sigh of relief. The bet was right. Bai Fei was overjoyed. Now we have to see what these senior executives plan. Are you going to fight to the end with Elder Meng? Or choose to give up? Elder Meng's old voice reached the ears of many Blood Sword sect senior officials, making them feel chilled. This made them very clear that it was obviously impossible to snatch Bai Fei from the elder's hand. Therefore, Long Outyen, who just claimed to be the first elder of the inner sect, bowed to Elder Meng very decisively and directly, and said loudly, "It turns out that this little guy is Elder Meng's apprentice." It was Long who was abrupt. "Say goodbye now." After saying that, Long Outyen turned around and left. The other elders also bowed their hands and saluted, then turned and left. Lin Tingtao was very unwilling, but he also knew very well that although Elder Meng was weaker than him, his background was terrifying. If he really wanted to argue with him, he probably wouldn't be able to do so. Therefore, Lin Tingtao could only bow his hands and leave after saying hello. Seeing that the top leaders of the inner and outer sects of the Blood Sword sect were leaving one after another, Bai Fei was completely relieved. He was really worried that Elder Meng's identity would not be able to suppress these senior officials. But obviously, Elder Meng's status seems to be much higher than he imagined. Seeing that Bai Fei had already made a choice, and many senior officials had already left, the inner and outer disciples who were watching the show also dispersed one after another. However, the news that Bai Fei has become the disciple of the Guardian Elder will probably spread throughout the Blood Sword sect in the near future. Seeing the people around him disperse, Bai Fei bowed to Elder Meng again, bowed and said, "Thank you, Elder Meng, for rescuing the siege. This disciple will definitely never forget this kind of kindness." Elder Meng did not speak, but looked at Bai Fei with a half-smile. When Bai Fei saw the smile on Elder Meng's face, he immediately felt uncomfortable, so he spoke again, "Elder Meng, I won't bother you here any more, and I'll take my leave first." After saying that, Bai Fei turned around and left. Wait a moment. Bai Fei wanted to run, but Elder Meng didn't give him any chance and shouted directly. When Bai Fei heard this, he didn't know why, but he felt an ominous premonition in his heart. However, people have already called me to stop them. If I run away, wouldn't it look like I have a guilty conscience? More importantly, I'm afraid I won't be able to run away. Bai Fei could only turn around and bow again. I wonder what else Elder Meng has to do. Follow me. Elder Meng said lightly, left the stone platform and walked towards the right. Seeing this, Bai Fei could only follow him. After a while, Bai Fei followed Elder Meng to a cave. After entering the cave, Elder Meng stood there with his hands behind his back, looking at Bai Fei, and said in a calm tone, "Kneel down." Bai Fei didn't know why. "Elder Meng, what does this mean? Don't you want to become my teacher?" Elder Meng asked back. "Don't we have to start the apprenticeship ceremony now?" "What the hell?" Bai Fei was immediately shocked. He never expected that this bad old man would actually want to take advantage of him. At that moment, Bai Fei hurriedly said, "Elder Meng, this is different from what we just said." "Why is it different?" Elder Meng asked back. "Did you say in front of so many people that you wanted to become my teacher?" "Did you say you would fulfill your promise?" This is all your fault, right? I did everything according to your words, what? Is there something wrong? That's right, but... Bai Fei thought to himself, isn't this just a show? Why are you serious about coming? It's not that Bai Fei is unwilling to worship Elder Meng as his master, but he has many secrets, and more importantly, he needs freedom. Without enough freedom, you will be subject to many restrictions. Seeing Bai Fei like this, Elder Meng couldn't help but laugh. Okay. I won't tease you. I really want to accept you as my disciple. However, I won't teach you anything when you accept a disciple. After all, I am a guardian elder, and I don't have that much time to teach you. So, what your future achievements will be depends on you. I have no interest in your secrets. But I only have one request for you, and that is that you must never betray the sect. Otherwise, I will cut you into pieces even if it's the end of the world. Have you understood? Bai Fei had some unexpected things. He did not expect that Elder Meng would express his thoughts so simply and directly, but Elder Meng's idea is exactly what Bai Fei needs most right now. What he wants most is not to be restrained. Therefore, after hearing what Elder Meng said, Bai Fei was ecstatic and hurriedly shouted, I understand. Why don't you become a disciple soon? Disciple Bai Fei, meet the master. When Bai Fei heard this, he immediately knelt down and kowtowed. When Elder Meng heard this, he just nodded lightly, get up. Then Elder Meng threw his token to Bai Fei, you have passed the 9 levels and officially become an outer disciple. Take my token and go to Fengtian Hall, to register and receive your reward. Yes, master. Bai Fei took the token and went to Fengtian Hall happily. Watching Bai Fei disappear from his sight, Elder Meng sighed, I hope I am doing the right thing. Fengtian Hall is a hall in the outer sect, which is responsible for registering the outer disciples and distributing their salaries. Bai Fei came to Fengtian Hall, handed over Elder Meng's token, and said his name, which shocked the disciples of Fengtian Hall. The fact that Bai Fei passed the 9 levels has long been a hot topic. Everyone knows that among the menial disciples, there is a peerless genius. So, these disciples of Fengtian Hall are very respectful to Bai Fei. Brother Bai Fei, this is your disciple uniform, as well as your token, sword, and storage ring. Please keep them. This is the extra reward for passing the 9 levels. Please keep it. A Fengtian Temple disciple handed the regular equipment to Bai Fei, and another Fengtian Temple disciple handed a black box to Bai Fei. Bai Fei first took the regular equipment, then his eyes fell on the black box and asked, what is this? Chapter 33 Black Box. You are listening at novelfull.audio. We don't know much about this. We only know that it was placed here by the sect leader, and it is stipulated that only disciples who have passed the 9 levels can receive rewards. The Fengtian Temple disciple holding the black box shook his head and replied. That's it, great, thank you. When Bai Fei heard this, he said nothing more, took the black box, and left here. Bai Fei left Fengtian Hall and returned to the 9-story Linglong Tower, where he found that Elder Meng was already guarding here. Master, Bai Fei bowed to Elder Meng and bowed. Did you get the reward? Elder Meng heard this and asked. I got it. Bai Fei nodded. What is it? A black box. Bai Fei answered truthfully. The old man finally didn't take this thing for granted. Hearing Bai Fei's words, Elder Meng let out a cold snort, with a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Bai Fei was dumbfounded after hearing this. Did the master just call the sect leader an old man? From now on, you will live in my cave. At this time, Elder Meng's voice sounded again, there are many empty rooms in the cave. You can just choose any one to live in after you go back. After all, many people are paying attention to you now. It is not suitable for you to live in the outer disciples' dormitory anymore to avoid any accidents. Elder Meng's words made Bai Fei slightly startled. He really didn't expect that Elder Meng would actually let him live in the former's cave. Bai Fei understood that Elder Meng was protecting himself. After all, he has a secret, Elder Meng can see it, why can't others see it? Especially since he passed 9 levels. With a little investigation, you can know how mediocre Bai Fei's previous experience was. Now that it has become so strong, there must be some opportunity. therefore, there must be people who are trying every possible means to investigate the secrets of Bai Fei, and will even do anything to get the secrets from him. Even though Bai Fei has become an outer disciple now, there will always be people who take desperate risks in the face of huge interests, but Elder Meng's move eliminated most of the hidden dangers. This move Bai Fei, thank you so much, Master. Okay, stop talking nonsense, go back quickly, don't delay my guarding. Elder Meng waved his hand impatiently, and then said, by the way, if you have nothing to do, take a look at the black box. It will be very helpful to you. Yes, Master. Bai Fei said goodbye to Elder Meng, returned to his cave, picked a room and checked in. He put on the exclusive clothes of an outer disciple, and with a thought, entered the storage ring. Inside the storage ring, there are some spiritual stones stored, which are the monthly salary for the outer disciples. In addition, there are jade slips and books. Bai Fei took out the jade slip and found that it contained the skills and martial arts of the blood sword sect. After becoming an outer disciple, you can have access to the more advanced techniques and martial arts of the blood sword sect, which are no longer the rough and abridged versions before. As for the book, it is called Blood Sword Sect Grand Canon, which explains the structure of the entire blood sword sect and various rules. Bai Fei already understood these when he was a handyman disciple, but it needs to be more detailed and complete. Bai Fei flipped through the blood sword sect grand ceremony and realized that the entire blood sword sect was divided into 3 levels, the outer gate, the inner gate, and the core sword pavilion. The sword pavilion of the blood sword sect is the core strength of the blood sword sect, and all the secrets are contained in it. Therefore, no matter whether they are people from the outer sect or people from the inner sect, they strive to enter the sword pavilion. Because the treatment at Jiang'e is far beyond imagination. This also made Bai Fei understand, after an outer disciple is promoted to an inner disciple, if he wants to take a step closer, he must be promoted to a sword pavilion disciple. The status of the disciples of Jiang'e is already equivalent to that of the elders of the inner sect. Of course, if you want to become a disciple of Jiang'e, it will be difficult to reach the sky. It's not what Bai Fei needs to understand now. Bai Fei's first task now is to prepare for the upcoming outer sect ranking battle. Just now, the master said that if you have nothing to do, take a closer look at the black box. Is there anything in this black box? From what he meant, he seems to know a lot about this black box. Bai Fei thought for a while, then took out the black box, glanced around on it, then stretched out a finger and pressed it down gently. Crack! At that moment, changes began to appear on the black box, and it began to rotate. Immediately, various lines appeared on the surface of the black box. What's the situation? Bai Fei was slightly startled when he saw this. He carefully observed the lines on the black box and found that these lines were incomplete. Strictly speaking, it should be irregular. It was like the Rubik's Cube he had seen in his previous life. This made Bai Fei immediately understand that this black box should be similar to a Rubik's Cube, so if you want to open this black box, you have to align the patterns on it. Obviously, this is a time-consuming and brain-consuming thing. Therefore, Bai Fei threw the black box into the storage ring without hesitation. He wasn't going to waste time on this now. The most urgent task is to break through to the 9th level of the body refining realm as soon as possible. Bai Fei is now at the 7th level of the body refining realm. There are still a few days before the outer sect ranking battle, so he must become as powerful as possible in these few days. After all, when the outer sect ranking battle comes, he will have to face Zhou Yulin. Not only Zhou Yulin, but also that person, Lu Liwen. Among the outer sect disciples, Lu Liwen ranks first. That is Bai Fei's rival. Lu Liwen had already broken through to the gathering spirit realm a long time ago. In the last outer sect ranking battle, the realm he showed had already reached the 8th level of the gathering spirit realm. After such a long time, Lu Liwen may have broken through to the 9th level of the gathering spirit realm, or even the 10th level. With Bai Fei's current strength, it may be okay to deal with Zhou Yulin, but dealing with Lu Liwen, it's unrealistic, so, he can only improve again. Thinking of this, Bai Fei closed his eyes, his mind sank, and his consciousness entered the system space. At that moment, Bai Fei waved his hand, and an information panel appeared. Name, Bai Fei. Spiritual cultivation realm, 7th level of body refining realm. Body refining realm, 5th level of blood tempering realm. Soul tempering realm, 11th level of perception. Current points, 400. Current items, soul tempering pill times 1, blood explosion pill times 1. Chapter 34, Flaming Unicorn Tiger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Oh, I actually broke through to the 5th level of blood tempering. Bai Fei was a little surprised to see the data content presented on the information panel. I also broke through the soul tempering realm. It must be said that this time, I have improved a lot by breaking through the 9 levels. But the spiritual cultivation realm remained where it was, without any change. Bai Fei's heart moved, and he mobilized the system all. He glanced at it and found that a top-level body refining pill required 1,000 points. This really made Bai Fei a little stunned, but after thinking about it, Bai Fei felt it was natural. As we all know, pills are divided into good and bad. The same pill has subtle differences that cause the difference in strength of the effect. Therefore, pills are generally divided into grades 1 to 9 above the large grade. Because of the different effects of pills, they are divided into primary, intermediate, advanced, special and top grades. Primary is the worst kind of pill, top is the best kind of pill. However, it is very difficult to refine a pill with top effects, because the top level has another name, called Great Perfection Pill. It means that there is no leakage of the medicinal effect, and it can be perfectly absorbed 100%. However, there are very few alchemists in the world who can refine such top-level pills. They are very rare, but this problem does not exist in the system. In the system, all kinds of pills are available, and there is no need to worry about any side effects. The only thing to worry about is the price. Now Bai Fei only has 400 points, and a top-level body refining pill requires 1,000 points. Of course, there are other grades of body refining pills, and those require fewer points. However, since you have to use it, you naturally have to use the best. How can you settle for second best? It's just points. I'll do the task, Bai Fei muttered, then raised his head and shouted to the void, "System, I want to do the task." Ding. Please select the task option. I choose triple task. Bai Fei is very confident in his current strength, so he feels that he can choose multiple tasks. Ding. 10 points deducted, get triple mission. Current points, 390. Mission released. Please check. First mission, go to the second floor of Xiantian Cemetery to kill a 4th level beast, reward 2,000 points. Second mission, go to the second floor of Xiantian Cemetery to find a spiritual snake grass, reward 2,000 points. Third mission, go to the second floor of Xiantian Cemetery to find a piece of Wuya True Crystal, reward 2,000 points. As the mission details emerged, Bai Fei's figure turned into a ray of light and disappeared on the spot. When he appeared again, he had already appeared in a valley. The valley was quiet and misty. Indistinctly, you can see the mountains and forests. From time to time, there are all kinds of roars, which make people feel creepy and frightened after hearing them. Bai Fei glanced around and immediately saw the clothes on his body. He frowned slightly and said, "System, can you change my clothes for me?" Bai Fei entered Xiantian Cemetery through the system, so his appearance was also reproduced according to the real world. Bai Fei had worn the disciple clothes of the Blood Sword sect before, so the clothes here were also the disciple clothes of the Blood Sword sect, but Bai Fei didn't want to expose his identity. Otherwise it would inevitably cause a lot of trouble, so he wanted the system to change his clothes. Buzz. As soon as Bai Fei finished speaking, his clothes changed and became exactly the same as at the beginning. Seeing this, Bai Fei nodded with satisfaction, and his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. To be honest, Bai Fei never understood why this place was called Xiantian Cemetery. It clearly looked like an endless mountain range. Why was it called a cemetery? If it was a cemetery, whose cemetery would it be? Bai Fei shuttled quickly between the mountains and forests like a cheetah. With his powerful soul perception, Bai Fei avoided countless dangers. Bai Fei was going to deal with a 4th level beast. The combat power of a 4th level beast is comparable to the 3rd major realm of the spiritual cultivation realm, the Danyuan realm. Bai Fei is now in the 7th level of the body refining realm. Even with a systematic combat power increase, he can only reach the 7th level of the Danyuan realm. However, the Xiantian Cemetery is full of dangers, and Bai Fei must leave some room. Otherwise, if something unexpected happens, he will not have any combat power at all, then he will be finished. Therefore, Bai Fei plans to find a 4th level primary beast. After all, with his current strength, it is more than enough to deal with a 4th level primary beast. After traveling around the 2nd level of the Xiantian Cemetery, Bai Fei finally found a 4th level primary beast, Flame Unicorn Tiger. The Flaming Unicorn Tiger is a fire beast with powerful flame ability. At this moment, the Flaming Unicorn Tiger is lying on a huge bluestone to rest. Bai Fei approached quietly, his eyes narrowed slightly, he stepped suddenly, and with a flash of his body, he appeared in front of the Flaming Unicorn Tiger. At the same time, he raised the golden sword in his hand, flashing a dazzling light, and chopped it down fiercely. At that moment, a sword energy filled with sharp energy burst out. At that moment, the Flaming Unicorn Tiger sensed the breath of danger. It suddenly opened its eyes and saw a sharp sword energy slashing towards it, which made it roar. Then, its horn burst into a blazing red light, spewing out a flame, and fiercely hit the sharp sword energy. Bang! The two energy fluctuations collided fiercely in the void, and a shocking sound broke out. The dazzling light burst out, and the surging energy fluctuations directly rebounded, forcing both figures back. The Flaming Unicorn Tiger roared angrily, and its scarlet eyes were full of rage. It really didn't expect that it was attacked by someone while sleeping. Still being attacked by an ant-like human. How could this be tolerated? The Flaming Unicorn Tiger moved its limbs, rushed out violently, and hit Bai Fei at an extremely terrifying speed. Seeing this, Bai Fei also flashed and fought with it. For a while, the explosions continued and the dust and smoke rolled. However, although the Flaming Unicorn Tiger was powerful, it was a pity that it encountered Bai Fei. In the end, Bai Fei found an opportunity and pierced through the body of the Flaming Unicorn Tiger in one fell swoop, killing it. Chapter 35, 8th Level of Body Refining. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the first task, and you will be rewarded with 2,000 points. Current host's remaining points, 2,390. After Bai Fei killed the Flame One-Horned Tiger, the system's voice rang in his mind. Bai Fei's breathing was a little rapid. After taking a few breaths, he heard the roars of various beasts around him, which made people tremble. Bai Fei's eyes changed slightly, and he left here in a flash. Bai Fei tossed and turned, and finally found a hidden cave to rest. In the cave, Bai Fei sat cross-legged, running his skills. His whole body shone with a faint blood-red light, and a sharp aura filled the air. At that moment, Bai Fei was like a sharp sword about to be unsheathed. The technique that Bai Fei is practicing now is the technique of the Blood Sword sect. Blood Sword 10,000 Secrets. Blood Sword 10,000 Techniques is the basic skill of Blood Sword sect, with a total of 12 levels. It is said that after cultivating it to the level of Deshang, it can control the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and condense 10,000 swords. That scene can be described as devastating. However, except for the founder of the Blood Sword sect who created the 10,000 art of the bleeding sword, only the peerless genius from 300 years ago has cultivated to that level in so many years. Until now, the Blood Sword sect is gradually declining. Not to mention practicing to the great perfection state, there are very few who can practice the Blood Sword 10,000 Secrets to the 10th level or above. Of course, there are various restrictions on this. Like the handyman disciples, they can only access the 1st and 2nd levels of the Blood Sword 10,000 Secrets. Outer disciples can access the 3rd level and above the 5th level. Inner disciples can access the 6th to 9th levels. Only by becoming a disciple of Jiangya can one be qualified to obtain all the Blood Sword 10,000 Secrets. However, it is normal for the Blood Sword sect to do this. After all, if the technique is spread casually, if someone with evil intentions leaks it, the consequences will be very serious. Now Bai Fei has cultivated the 1st and 2nd levels of the Blood Sword 10,000 art to great perfection and is making a breakthrough. Towards the 3rd level, the higher the level of the cultivation method, the faster the cultivation speed, and various secret skills and even magical powers can be multiplied. Bai Fei didn't master much martial arts, so if he practiced the Blood Sword 10,000 Secrets to the extreme, he could also develop new unique skills. At this moment, the thick spiritual energy in Bai Fei's dantian was boiling and surging, constantly rotating and compressing around a certain point. You can vaguely see a rough outline appearing in the center of the aura, that looks like a long sword. This is the sign after practicing the Blood Sword 10,000 art to the 3rd level. blood sword. The condensed blood sword can be used as a magical weapon or used in martial arts. Of course, if you continue to use spiritual energy to cultivate and temper, the blood sword will become more and more powerful. It can even be used as a magical weapon in the future, allowing you to unite your body and weapon into one, and burst out with stronger power. Now Bai Fei has just cultivated the third level of the blood sword 10,000 art, but even in this state, he has already condensed the outline of the blood sword. One can imagine how terrifying Bai Fei's talent has become now. After practicing for a while, Bai Fei stopped practicing, then with a thought in his heart, he summoned the system interface. He directly redeemed a top-level body refining pill in the system mall. He wanted to try to see if he could redeem it on the system map. Ding. 1,000 points were deducted and successfully redeemed for a top-level body refining pill. Current remaining points, 1390. The next second, the void in front of Bai Fei flickered slightly, and a crystal clear pill without any flaws appeared. It's really good. Seeing this, Bai Fei couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and a faint smile appeared on the corners of his lips. If the system can be summoned anytime and anywhere to exchange things, it will undoubtedly be very simple for Bai Fei. However, Bai Fei also knew that this must be the effect of system evolution. As his strength becomes stronger, the system will continue to upgrade. Otherwise, it will be difficult for it to keep up with his own speed. At that moment, Bai Fei reached forward with his palm, grabbed the body refining pill, and swallowed it into his belly. Boom! A majestic energy burst out in Bai Fei's body, making him feel warm. Bai Fei activated the blood sword 10,000 Ju without hesitation and began to absorb the energy of this top-level body refining pill. At that moment, the billowing energy spread out to the limbs and bones like a flood. Immediately afterwards, pop, pop, pop sounds were heard from everywhere in Bai Fei's body, as if bones were hitting each other, which made people's teeth feel sour when they heard it. As time passed bit by bit, the aura on Bai Fei's body continued to rise. In the end, his realm stayed above the 8th level of the body refining realm. Bai Fei breathed out gently, clenched his fist slightly, and felt the power transmitted from his body, which was stronger than before. This really didn't occur to Bai Fei that just breaking through to a small level would actually bring about such a huge increase in power. Continue. Bai Fei once again exchanged for a top-level body refining pill and continued to practice. This time, although Bai Fei's aura became much stronger, he did not break through to the 9th level of the body refining realm. It is obvious that the 9th level of the body refining realm requires much more energy than the 8th level of the body refining realm. This made Bai Fei sigh and said to himself, "It seems that I have to do the other 2 tasks before I can be promoted." At this moment, Bai Fei's heart moved and he mobilized the taskbar. The second task is to find the spirit snake grass, and the third task is to find the endless true crystal. These 2 tasks are to find natural treasures, and the reward points are the same as the first task. I don't know how strong the fierce beasts guarding them are. Bai Fei looked at the displayed task content and said to himself, with a thoughtful look in his eyes, according to the last task situation, the task of finding natural treasures must be accompanied by the protection of fierce beasts. There is basically no danger in the tasks given by the system unless there is an accident, like Ling before. If he hadn't plotted something and let himself be chased by the giant pig, he wouldn't have been seriously injured and almost died. Thinking of Ling, Bai Fei's eyes became cold. I have to find a chance to get rid of that guy. Since this guy wants to kill him, there is no way he can let him go. Of course, he doesn't need to go find that guy specifically, it depends on luck. Chapter 36, Meeting Xiao Zhan again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If Ling is lucky, then it will be a different story. If you are not lucky, then you can't blame Bai Fei. Bai Fei glanced at the map displayed by the system. After looking at the marks on the map for spirit snake grass and Wuya true crystal, I found that Wuya true crystal was relatively close to me, so Bai Fei decided to complete the mission of Wuya true crystal first. At that moment, Bai Fei got up and left the cave. Following the guidance on the system map, he went to the depths of the 2nd floor of Shantian Cemetery. However, in the middle of the action, Bai Fei heard a loud noise not far away. Originally, Bai Fei was not going to pay attention. After all, Shantian Cemetery is inherently dangerous, and it is also common for people to kill people and seize treasures. However, when Bai Fei was about to leave, He heard a familiar roar. Xiao Zhan, hand over your things and I can make you die happily, Xiao Zhan. When Bai Fei heard this, a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. Xiao Zhan was the person Bai Fei met on his first mission in Shantian Cemetery after awakening to the world map system. He is also Bai Fei's first friend. Without Xiao Zhan's help, Bai Fei probably wouldn't have been able to complete the mission. Bai Fei originally thought that he and Xiao Zhan would never meet again. I never thought that I would meet Xiao Zhan here again. More importantly, the voice that threatened Xiao Zhan just now was also a voice that Bai Fei was very familiar with. That was young Ling, who almost killed Bai Fei before. This made Bai Fei couldn't help but draw a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, and he immediately opened his mouth and said, I really never expected it. I just thought that we would meet again, but I never thought that we would meet again. It's really interesting to meet him. At that moment, Bai Fei's body flashed and flew towards that side. Whether it was Xiao Zhan or Yang Ling, Bai Fei had reasons to intervene. The former is his friend, the latter is his own enemy. You have to do it yourself. In an open space, Xiao Zhan was covered in scars. The long knife in his hand already had many cracks and looked like it was about to break at any time, but Xiao Zhan's eyes were still full of determination. Even when facing a dozen people in front of him, he didn't flinch at all. The people surrounding Xiao Zhan were almost all spirit-gathering realm warriors. The leader is Yang Ling. At this moment, the aura emanating from Yang Ling's body was actually more terrifying than before. He had already reached the 9th level of the spirit-gathering realm. And it seems that it is possible to break through to the 10th level of the spirit-gathering realm at any time. There is even a ferocious aura emanating from his body, like a ferocious tiger that chooses people to eat. At this time, when Xiao Zhan heard Yang Ling's words, he couldn't help but smile coldly and said in a cold voice, Yang Ling, stop talking nonsense. If you want something, just do it. Of course, it depends on whether you have the ability to get it. That when Yang Ling heard this, his eyes were cold. He waved his palm and said solemnly, do it. At that moment, a famous warrior rushed out and launched a fierce offensive against Xiao Zhan. Xiao Zhan faced him without any fear. Suddenly, various swords clashed with clanging sounds, and spiritual energy fluctuations spread in the void. It has to be said that Xiao Zhan's strength has improved a lot after the last time. He was originally at the 3rd level of the spirit-gathering realm, but now he has reached the 5th level of the spirit-gathering realm. Moreover, the strength he has shown is much stronger than that of the 5th level of the soul-gathering realm. I am afraid that if it is really one-on-one, the 6th and 7th levels of the soul-gathering realm may not be his opponent. It's just a pity that Xiao Zhan is already scarred, and there are so many warriors besieging him now. Even if he has strong strength, it is difficult for him to compete. What's more important is that Yang Ling is still waiting for an opportunity to find a flaw and want to sneak attack Xiao Zhan. I have to say that Yang Ling is still so despicable and shameless. No, Yang Ling really found an opportunity. His eyes lit up, his figure flashed, and he appeared on the left side of Xiao Zhan, punching out with a fierce punch. Xiao Zhan immediately felt the danger. His eyes changed. He turned around quickly and held the long knife in front of him. Bang! Yang Ling's fist hit Xiao Zhan's long knife hard. The ferocious and violent power exploded from his fist with a roar of a tiger, hitting the long knife. The long sword that had already reached its limit was finally unable to bear it at this time and collapsed and shattered. Huge power also blasted into Xiao Zhan's body. Xiao Zhan let out a scream, and his body flew out like a broken scarecrow and hit the ground heavily. Xiao Zhan wanted to get up, but as soon as he moved, his limbs seemed to be torn off. Severe pain was transmitted to every nerve in him, making his face become ferocious, and his mouth was red at the same time. Blood spurted out of his mouth, causing his breath to weaken to the extreme. Seeing that Xiao Zhan had lost his fighting power, Yang Ling had a proud smile on his face, stared at Xiao Zhan, and said in a cold tone, Xiao Zhan, I said, hand over the things honestly, I can let you die happily. It's just a pity that you won't get this ending. I will torture you to death, and then behead you. I wonder how your grandfather will feel when he sees your body hanging on the wall of Muyan City. Yang Ling's mouth was full of cruel smile. When Xiao Zhan heard this, his eyes widened and he roared, Yang Ling. My Xiao family will never let you go. Huh, just you? Yang Ling smiled contemptuously and said disdainfully, the small Xiao family also wants to shake the elephant's leg. Don't know whether to live or die. Go ahead and cripple him. At that moment, two warriors in the dueling realm approached Xiao Zhan, ready to cripple Xiao Zhan. Seeing this, Xiao Zhan's face was full of despair. He really didn't expect that he would fall into such a desperate situation. This made his eyes flash with madness. He didn't want to fall into Yang Ling's hands like this. He decided to self-destruct. However, at this moment, a voice full of laughter slowly sounded in the jungle. Brother Xiao, you look a little embarrassed. Who? When Yang Ling heard this, his eyes suddenly turned cold and he shouted angrily. As for Xiao Zhan, who was about to self-destruct, he was stunned when he heard this and immediately looked in the direction of the voice. The next second, Bai Fei stepped out of the jungle. Chapter 37, Easy Solution. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Bai Fei looking at him with a smile on his face, a look of surprise appeared on Xiao Zhan's face. Bai Fei. Long time no see, brother Xiao. Bai Fei said hello to Xiao Zhan. Bai Fei's appearance also made Yang Ling's eyes widen and his voice became sharper. Bai Fei? How is that possible? Why aren't you dead yet? At this moment, Yang Ling's mood was quite explosive. He always thought that Bai Fei had died in the hands of the giant-toothed pig. After all, he had not seen Bai Fei for a long time, but I never thought that Bai Fei was still alive and well. More importantly, his realm actually broke through again. What kind of joke is this? But soon, Yang Ling calmed down. He has now broken through to the 9th level of the spirit-gathering realm, and after the last situation, the white tiger blood in Yang Ling's body has become more pure, so he feels that even if he really encounters Bai Fei, he doesn't need to be too afraid. At this time, Bai Fei heard Yang Ling's exclamation and just said lightly, "You are not dead yet, how can I die?" But when Yang Ling heard this, he snorted coldly, with a ferocious face, and said in a cold voice, "Very good. I didn't kill you last time, but this time you actually threw yourself into a trap. It just happened to let you and your good brothers accompany you on the road to the underworld. It can be considered that I made it possible for you to be alone when you went to the underworld." Xiao Zhan also reacted at this moment. His expression became very anxious, and he shouted anxiously, "Bai Fei, leave quickly. This guy's strength is beyond your ability to deal with. Leave quickly. I'll stop them." "Leave? I'm just thinking about leaving now. Can I leave?" When Yang Ling heard this, he smiled coldly, then waved his hand and issued an order. "Do it." Swish. At that moment, the two spirit-gathering realm warriors who were originally going to destroy Xiao Zhan flashed out and attacked Bai Fei. When Bai Fei saw this, he just glanced lightly, without any emotional changes on his face. He just raised his palm, clenched it into a fist, and faced him. Bang! Bang! At that moment, two shrill screams rang out in the void. The next second, two figures flew out like kites with broken strings and fell directly at Yang Ling's feet. These two figures were none other than the spirit-gathering realm warriors who had just dealt with Bai Fei. This made everyone in the audience feel excited. Especially Yang Ling. His pupils shrank even more, because he clearly sensed that Bai Fei did not use his spiritual energy just now. In other words, he just used his physical strength to fight off two of his spirit-gathering realm subordinates, and even seriously injured them. How can this be? How could a small body-refining realm warrior be able to explode with such powerful physical power? Xiao Zhan, who was still worried at first, was so shocked that his eyes widened when he saw this scene. Now he finally understood why Bai Fei wasn't worried at all. It turns out that his strength has become stronger than last time. Even if your strength becomes stronger, so what? Is it possible that you can still deal with so many of me? Yang Ling snorted coldly, raised his hands, and gave an order to the remaining men around him. "Let's attack together and kill him." At that moment, the warriors behind Yang Ling rushed out one after another and launched a fierce attack on Bai Fei. When Bai Fei saw this, he didn't show any panic at all, and just walked forward slowly. Although the opponent has a large number of people, Bai Fei is more powerful. Every time he punched, a warrior's body flew backwards with a scream. The attacks of these warriors were fierce, but they could not touch Bai Fei at all. Even if it really fell on Bai Fei's body, with his strong body, these attacks were just like scratching Bai Fei's body and had no effect at all. Seeing this scene, Yang Ling's eyes became increasingly gloomy. This was really beyond his expectation. He originally thought that with his many men, he should be able to take down Bai Fei easily. Never thought that Bai Fei's strength would be so terrifying. These warriors are no match for Bai Fei. Even Bai Fei hasn't used his spiritual energy yet. One can imagine how terrifying the strength that Bai Fei unleashes will be after he uses his spiritual energy. This made Yang Ling feel a trace of panic involuntarily. He knew very well that after the last incident with the giant-toothed pig, it was impossible for Bai Fei to let him go, therefore, he had to find a way to solve it. Then, Yang Ling's eyes fell on Zhan, who was sitting on the ground not far away, and already had an idea in his mind. Therefore, while Bai Fei was still dealing with his men, Yang Ling moved his feet, flashed his body, and pounced on Zhan. He wanted to use Zhan's life to coerce Bai Fei. Zhan was watching Bai Fei fight against many, so he didn't expect that Yang Ling would take this opportunity to sneak attack on him. Zhan didn't realize it until Yang Ling appeared in front of him, but by this time, it was too late. Zhan was also a smart man, knowing that Yang Ling wanted to threaten Bai Fei with him, but at this moment, he was already seriously injured, unable to move, and had no way to avoid Yang Ling's attack. This made Zhan fall into despair again, thinking that he would become a burden again. However, just as Yang Ling was about to grab Zhan, a sharp sword energy shot out from a distance and shot directly at Yang Ling. If Yang Ling wanted to grab Zhan by force, he would definitely be cut on the wrist by this sword energy. This scared Yang Ling so much that he had to retreat backwards to avoid this sword energy. This sword energy was naturally emitted by Bai Fei. Although Bai Fei was fighting with Yang Ling's men, his attention was always on Yang Ling. Because he knew that with Yang Ling's despicable and shameless character, when he saw that things were not favorable to him, he would definitely take other actions. What was the result? Things happened just as Bai Fei had imagined. Yang Ling wanted to hold Zhan hostage to threaten him, but fortunately he had already made a response. He drew out the golden sword, predicted the angle, and chopped it into a sword energy, making Yang Ling return empty-handed. While forcing Yang Ling to retreat, Bai Fei had also knocked down all of his men, leaving them lying on the ground without any strength to move. Chapter 38, Fighting Yang Ling Again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dealing with these men, Bai Fei appeared beside Zhan in a flash, then looked at him and asked, "Are you okay?" Zhan shook his head, "I'm fine." Bai Fei nodded slightly when he heard this. "You take a rest first, let me deal with that guy." Zhan just nodded when he heard this. "Be careful, this Yang Ling is not a simple guy." "Hee, don't worry, I was able to cripple him last time, and I can kill him this time," Bai Fei said with a smile, his tone full of confidence. Zhan was shocked, thinking that Bai Fei had already fought with Yang Ling before. At this time, Bai Fei had already taken 2 steps and stood in front of Zhan, looking at Yang Ling, and said calmly, "Yang Ling, you are still the same as before, as despicable and shameless as always. Now it's time to settle the accounts between us." Yang Ling's eyes became even gloomier when he heard this. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself down, and then said in a deep voice, "Bai Fei, I was wrong last time, I apologize to you here. This time let's pretend that nothing happened. From now on, you go your way and I go mine, how about that?" Yang Ling's words surprised Bai Fei. He really didn't expect that Yang Ling would compromise like this. Yang Ling really didn't want to compromise in his heart, but the strength shown by Bai Fei was too strong. Although Yang Ling felt that he could defeat Bai Fei even if he went all out, but if that happened, the price he paid was too high. This is Xiantian Cemetery. Xiantian Cemetery is full of dangers. Once seriously injured, it would be very dangerous. Therefore, Yang Ling felt that there was no need to fight Bai Fei to the death here. However, Bai Fei didn't intend to let Yang Ling go. If Yang Ling didn't pit him last time, then it would be fine. But since he chose to pit and kill him, he absolutely couldn't let the former go. Moreover, with Yang Ling's character, if he really let him go this time, who knows if he will create something weird to torment him in the future. In order to avoid such trouble, Bai Fei felt that he had to let Yang Ling stay here forever. At that moment, Bai Fei's face showed a very bright smile, and he said to Yang Ling, "I'm sorry, I don't accept your apology. Yang Ling saw such a sunny smile on Bai Fei's face, and thought he accepted his proposal, but when he heard Bai Fei's words, Yang Ling's mood suddenly sank to the bottom. He felt that he was fooled. So, Yang Ling's face was gloomy and his tone became grim. Bai Fei, do you have to meet me in life and death? No, Bai Fei shook his head. You die, I live. Okay. Yang Ling laughed in anger. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Boom! A violent and fierce momentum burst out from Yang Ling's body. At the same time, a tiger roar sounded in his body. Behind him, a white tiger shadow appeared, with a terrifying momentum. Seeing this, Bai Fei couldn't help but narrow his eyes, raised his eyebrows, and said with a hint of surprise in his tone, it's quite scary. It must be said that Yang Ling's strength is indeed stronger than the last time he saw it, but, he, Bai Fei, is no longer the Wu Xiaomon of the past. White tiger blood transformation. A low roar sounded in Yang Ling's throat, then, his body made a crackling sound, the whole body changed drastically and turned into a tiger form. This time, the white tiger form is more thorough than the last time, and the breath it exudes has broken through the shackles. Indistinctly, it has reached the fourth realm of Danyuan. Bai Fei, I want you to die. Yang Ling's voice was full of hoarseness, his eyes were full of cold murderous intent, and then he flew towards Bai Fei. Shua! Yang Ling was extremely fast, but in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Bai Fei, then stretched out his tiger claws, tore the air, and grabbed Bai Fei. Seeing this, Bai Fei just smiled coldly, without any intention of dodging, and directly raised his fist, circulated his spiritual energy, covered the surface, and went forward. Bang! The flesh fist and claws collided with each other, and a crisp sound was heard, and then a strong force rebounded, forming a strong wind, which hit the two and forced them back. The two people retreated, and the ground around them also cracked and dust was raised. Shua! Shua! After being forced to retreat, the two people had cold eyes, and they shot out again, continuing to launch a strong offensive and bombarding each other. Bang! Boom! Boom! Bang! Boom! 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 The two people were like peerless beasts, colliding fiercely. Every collision caused violent energy fluctuations, the ground shook, dust and smoke billowed, and the entire space was in a mess. As the only spectator, Zhan was horrified. He really didn't expect that, just because he hadn't seen Bai Fei for a short period of time. Bai Fei's strength had become so terrifying. This made Zhan really sigh that Bai Fei was indeed worthy of being the young king, and he was really extraordinary. Boom! Another earth-shaking roar echoed in the space. The terrifying energy wave bombarded the ground, causing the entire earth to shake slightly. Bai Fei and Yang Ling collided with each other again, and then suddenly separated. After separating, Yang Ling's face showed a very ugly expression, and he couldn't help but curse. Damn it! What's the situation with this Bai Fei? How can his strength be so strong? Yang Ling really didn't understand. He had already used his white tiger blood transformation and used the white tiger bloodline to improve his strength. Now Yang Ling, let alone the warriors in the Juling realm, can even compete with the warriors in the third and fourth levels of the Danyuan realm. What was the result? Facing Bai Fei, he was actually unable to suppress him. This was too unbelievable. More importantly, Yang Ling could feel that Bai Fei did not seem to have consumed much energy after such a long period of fighting. This meant that his spiritual energy was even stronger than he had imagined. But how was this possible? Chapter 39 Soul-Breaking Light / You are listening at novelfull.audio. You know, Yang Ling's own white tiger bloodline is already a very rare bloodline. Bloodline represents the strength of one's own ability, aptitude represents the height of one's own cultivation. Yang Ling felt that his talent was not low and his bloodline was not weak. This is why when he heard that Bai Fei was actually the contemporary young king, he would speak rudely, mock him, and even want to beat him up and suppress him so that he could gain more fame. He never thought that he would be defeated. A martial artist in the gathering spirit realm, and with the blood of the white tiger, actually lost to an ant in the tempering body realm. How could he tolerate this? Originally, Yang Ling thought that he had used a trick and used the giant-toothed pig to solve Bai Fei. He never thought that Bai Fei not only survived, but also became so strong. This made Yang Ling's heart completely unbalanced. He didn't understand. After all, he was a child of destiny. How could he be defeated by a small ant in the refining body realm? This caused Yang Ling to have a psychological shadow. He knew very well that if he could not kill Bai Fei today, Bai Fei would become his inner demon. At that time, his path of cultivation would be stagnant. This was absolutely unacceptable to Yang Ling. After thinking of this, Yang Ling's eyes became extremely cold. He stared at Bai Fei in front of him and said with gritted teeth, "Bai Fei, you forced me to do this. I didn't want to use that trick." Hearing Yang Ling's words, Bai Fei's eyes showed doubt. He didn't understand why the former said such a thing. Could it be that he still had some trump card that he hadn't played? The question is, why did he force him to do this? He was clearly trying to kill himself at the beginning, and now he was just taking revenge. Why did he make himself look like a victim? Bai Fei complained in his heart, then raised his palm and waved it towards Yang Ling, saying calmly, "Stop talking nonsense, let's do it." Hearing Bai Fei's words, Yang Ling's eyes suddenly became extremely gloomy, and then he took 2 steps forward, and then a low voice sounded in his throat. "Burning blood white tiger turn." At the same time that Yang Ling said this, his hands were like a butterfly flying through flowers, quickly forming a series of seals. As the seals on Yang Ling's hands kept changing, a burst of sizzling burning sounds rang out on Yang Ling's body. Immediately afterwards, countless blood burned and gushed out of Yang Ling's body, emitting a violent energy aura, gathering in front of him. As these drops of blood essence gushed out and burned, Yang Ling's aura became weaker and weaker, but the energy fluctuations emitted by these blood essences that surged out and converged in the void became more and more fierce. Finally, with a bang, a ferocious tiger phantom with a red body condensed out from the gathering of these blood essences. The moment it condensed, an extremely terrifying and violent aura spread throughout the void. The ground was cracked by this, tearing cracks one after another, and dust, gravel, and broken wood flew up. The whole scene was like the end of the world. It was as if this ferocious tiger was the god of death that brought the world to the world. It must be said that the unique skill that Yang Ling displayed was really something that Bai Fei had never expected, because he did feel the breath of danger from it. At this moment, Yang Ling's face was pale and extremely weak, but his eyes became extremely bright, and a smug smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said, "Bai Fei, this is my strongest unique skill. It's too late for you to regret it now. Die. Go." Under Yang Ling's control, the blood-colored tiger phantom roared and rushed towards Bai Fei. Although the blood-colored tiger was running very slowly in the air, it seemed that Bai Fei could dodge it with just a flash. However, only Bai Fei could sense that this blood-colored tiger phantom had already locked his aura. No matter where he ran, he had no way to avoid it. All he could do now was to resist it head-on. Therefore, Bai Fei did not choose to dodge. He narrowed his eyes, a faint smile appeared on his face, and whispered to himself, "You have a trump card. Could it be, I don't have a trump card?" Then, Bai Fei's heart moved slightly, and the soul power in the soul sea surged out. At that moment, Bai Fei released a terrible soul pressure. Originally, Zhan, who was still worried that Bai Fei would lose, immediately felt the soul pressure released from him, which made Zhan's eyes widen and said in horror, "This is soul pressure. Could it be that Bai Fei is also a soul master?" But even Yang Ling, who was full of smug smiles and felt that he would win without a doubt, felt the soul pressure emanating from Bai Fei, which made his face show an unbelievable expression. This soul pressure. No, it's impossible. This is impossible. Yang Ling didn't want to believe this fact, but the reality is very cruel. The rolling soul power, under Bai Fei's control, gathered together in the void. With the hand seals of Bai Fei's hands, the soul power formed a light blade flashing with blazing white light, exuding an unparalleled sharp breath. "Soul-breaking light slash!" Bai Fei shouted coldly, and urged the soul light blade to shoot towards the blood-red tiger in front. Boom! The soul light blade hit the blood-red tiger fiercely, and both of them made a loud sound. The white and blood-red light flashed in the air, making the entire sky appear like a fire cloud. The rolling energy fluctuations continued to spread. Wherever it went, all matter was pierced and destroyed. After a while, the blood-red tiger finally couldn't bear it anymore, and let out a wail, and then was cut into two halves by the soul light blade, and then shot out violently, hitting Yang Ling fiercely. No, Yang Ling roared in despair, but still couldn't resist the attack of the soul light blade. His body flew out like a missile, breaking several trees before falling to the ground. After Bai Fei used the soul-breaking light slash, his face turned a little pale. After all, the soul-breaking light slash was quite consuming for him. Chapter 40. What a coincidence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Fei, how are you? Is everything okay? At this time, Zhan also saw that something was wrong with Bai Fei's situation, and asked quickly. When Bai Fei heard this, he just shook his head gently. It's nothing, it's just that the consumption is a bit high. After saying this, Bai Fei walked towards Yang Ling. Seeing that Bai Fei was fine, Zhan was slightly relieved, but at this moment, he was still feeling extremely shocked. He really didn't expect that Bai Fei's strength would be so terrifying. Not only is he physically strong and spiritually strong, he even has such majestic soul power. He has mastered each of the 3 realms of martial arts, and judging from the situation, he seems to be very proficient in them. How is this done? Is this the young king's capital? Zhan murmured, then came to his senses, took out the elixir from his storage ring, threw it into his mouth, and began to heal. At this moment, Bai Fei had already arrived in front of Yang Ling, and then found that Yang Ling's chest had been pierced, and his flesh and blood became bloody, and the white bones were clearly visible. However, he was still breathing weakly. This made Bai Fei a little surprised. He really didn't expect that Yang Ling was not dead after being hit by the soul-breaking light slash from the front. This white tiger bloodline is really not that powerful. Yang Ling thought secretly in his heart. Although the soul-shattering light slash that hit Yang Ling was partially weakened by the bloody tiger, the destructive power it contained was extremely powerful. However, Yang Ling was able to resist it because of the white tiger bloodline in his body. Of course, if Yang Ling is left here, he will die sooner or later. Therefore, at this time, Yang Ling was already full of fear, his eyes were full of desire for survival, and he said to Bai Fei, "Help, save me. As long as you save me, I will promise you anything, please, please." Hearing Yang Ling's words, Bai Fei looked indifferent and showed no mercy. He slowly said, "When you tricked me to kill me, you should have thought of this ending." When Yang Ling heard this, he already knew that Bai Fei would not save him. As a result, his eyes became extremely vicious, and he gritted his teeth angrily and said, Bai Fei, if you kill me, my Yang family will not let you go. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, you won't be able to escape the pursuit of the Yang family. TSK. Before Yang Ling could finish speaking, a long sword pierced Yang Ling's heart. At that moment, bright red blood splashed out. Yang Ling's eyes widened with a look of disbelief on his face. Then his body stopped twitching and his breath was completely cut off. Bai Fei turned his head, a look of surprise appeared on his face, because the person who stabbed Yang Ling's heart with a long sword and completely killed Yang Ling was Zhan, who had regained some mobility. Zhan's eyes were cold, he spat directly and snorted, "I'm sorry, the person who killed you is your father, Zhan and me." Hearing Zhan's words, Bai Fei felt a little helpless and said with a smile, "Brother Xiao, even if you don't mend this sword, he won't live long." "I know, but I just can't get angry," Zhan said angrily, "this bastard has been chasing me all the way. How could I vent my hatred if I didn't take advantage of the last moment to give him a sword blow?" When Bai Fei heard this, he didn't say much, but doubts appeared in his eyes, and he asked, "Speaking of which, how come you are on the 2nd floor? And you will be attacked by Yang Ling the pursuit? Isn't it just for this thing?" When Zhan heard this, he said angrily, then turned out his palm, a light flashed, and immediately a large crystal stone appeared in Bai Fei's sight. This large crystal stone is shining with a faint white light, which is quite sacred. Wuya true crystal. A look of surprise appeared on Bai Fei's face. He really didn't expect that Zhan would get the Wuya true crystal that he needed to complete his mission. "Yes, it's just this thing. I came across it by chance, and then I picked a big piece. As a result, this damn guy Yang Ling happened to run into me. He insisted on saying that this thing was his. He had to hand it over. But does this guy think I'm a fool? Of course I refused to give it to him, and then this guy chased me all the way for several days. If I hadn't met you, I would have died here. When Bai Fei heard this, he also smiled. With Yang Ling's shamelessness, he would indeed say that. But fortunately, this guy is dead, he just had some trouble. Having said this, Xiao Zhan couldn't help but frown, but he soon relaxed and said nonchalantly, of course, don't worry too much, anyway, he died in Xiantian Cemetery, with us it doesn't matter. When Bai Fei heard this, he just smiled slightly and said, Brother Xiao, can I ask you a favor? What's going on? Xiao Zhan asked. Can you cut a small piece of the Wuya true crystal in your hand and give it to me? Bai Fei looked at Xiao Zhan and replied, I'm of great use. When Xiao Zhan heard this, he handed it to Bai Fei without any hesitation and replied, no problem, you can cut it yourself as much as you need. Thank you very much. Bai Fei didn't expect Xiao Zhan to be so straightforward, which moved him a little. He immediately pulled out the golden sword, cut off a small piece from the Wuya true crystal, and held it in the palm of his hand. Middle. System, submit the task. Bai Fei thought secretly. At that moment, the Wuya true crystal in Bai Fei's hand turned into a ray of light and disappeared. The system's voice rang in Bai Fei's mind. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the third task, and you will be rewarded with 2,000 points. Current points remaining, 2390. When Bai Fei heard this prompt, he breathed a sigh of relief. He immediately handed the Wuya true crystal back to Xiao Zhan and said, Brother Xiao, thank you. You're welcome, brother. If you hadn't appeared in time, my life might not have been saved, let alone the Wuya true crystal. Xiao Zhan waved his hand and said nonchalantly, but you only want this small piece. You can cut more. No, this is enough. Bai Fei shook his head. That's it, okay. Upon hearing this, Xiao Zhan put away the remaining Wuya true crystal and asked casually at the same time,